everyone.
And hello, everyone.
Welcome back. And today's episode is the importance of building community through educational equity. I'm Judith Gutierrez.
And I'm Michael Lemus.
And this is Financial Paid.
So today we actually get the opportunity to talk about the Arthur S. Marmaduke High School Counselor Award. And we're very excited to go ahead and actually give you some details on what the award is, who actually got it this year, and how we actually go about supporting our communities across California. And in this case, we're going to be talking about a very special high school counselor that actually was the recipient of the award. But first, before we actually go there, I'd like to go ahead and take the opportunity to talk about the history of the award, what it is, how the person actually gets celebrated. To go back, let's go back in time for the actual award itself. So the award is actually named after one of our past executive directors of the commission, Arthur S. Marmaduke, hence the name. And that actually is to honor the longest serving executive director, that being Executive Director Marmaduke, who is actually with us for multiple decades here at the commission. And today we get the opportunity to actually meet with this year's award recipient, Yia Lee. So at this time, we're gonna go ahead and bring in Yia so that we can go ahead and have a really fruitful conversation about the award and his experience and how he serves California students.
I think that was a really good summary, Michael, of the Arthur S. Marmaduke Award. And as you mentioned, we are so happy to be here with Yia Lee today, who is this year's award winner. Hi, Yia. How about we start with just a brief introduction, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to being recognized for this award at the state level.
Hello, Judith and Michael. Thank you for having me today. It's a pleasure to join both of you guys. So as you know, my name is Yia Lee. I am a school counselor here at McLean High School in Fresno Unified, here in Fresno, California. A little bit about myself. I was born in Thailand, and my family and we migrated to the United States and landed here in Fresno when I was about 3 years old. So I grew up here in Fresno. I attended all Fresno Unified schools and graduated from here. So I was very fortunate that I had the opportunity to come back and serve my district. This is my 5th year as a school counselor with McLean High School and with Fresno Unified.
Well, thank you so much for introducing yourself, Yia. So we're very excited to have you here today. We know that when it comes to the Arthur S. Marmaduke Award, there are countless counselors all across the state that are nominated, and you, being the recipient of this year's award, makes you super special. On top of all the wonderful work that you do just day in, day out, you obviously stood out. And so it's really important that folks really get to know the work that our high school counselors do for us. You know, when it comes to applying for financial aid and getting ready for college, I was talking to Judith earlier today about even when I was going through high school, my high school counselor really played a pivotal role in me just attaining access and also thinking that college was actually available for me. It was because of my high school counselor that I really had that opportunity. And I want to just first off, just thank you for being here with us because we know it's hard work and we appreciate everything that you put in. But with that being said, when it comes to your day-to-day work, what does that look like? How do you serve students?
So my day-to-day work, it just depends on the time of the year and the grade levels that I receive every year. So here at McLean High School, we have 7 counselors. We have 1 head counselor and 6 other counselors that are assigned a caseload that we are in charge of. So based on the year. So this year I have 9th and 11th graders, and then next year I would follow them to 10th and 12th. And then after that, I'll receive a new group of 9th graders, 9, 11, and then I'll follow them again to 10th and 12th. So this year I have 9th and 11th graders, but I'm also supporting our school with the financial aid application. So as you know, right now here in October, it is a busy season for applications. So we have the CSU applications opened up. The UC applications are about to open in the next couple of days. And we're also continuing working on with students with their financial aid application. So we've already had students create their FSA ID last year when they were juniors already to prepare for it right now. So we've also done a couple financial aid workshops, evening workshops, and on the day-to-day basis, it just depends on which students I see. So if it's 9th graders, We talk about grades and their goals. If it's an 11th grader, we make sure that they're on track for graduation and then prepare them for the post-secondary goals. And then when it comes to seniors, of course, we just want to make sure that they have all the opportunities available come at the end of the senior year so that they can pick what is right for them at that point in their life. But right now we're helping them applying and making sure those options are open for them.
Definitely. So it seems like it's all encompassing. It's not just supporting students on their financial aid process and ensuring that they're able to afford and access higher education. It sounds like through your work as a school counselor, you're also helping them with that admissions process, the application process. And how has that maybe impacted your workload? What sort of questions do you receive from students? What feedback do you get? Because it is an overwhelming yet exciting process nonetheless.
Yeah, so as a school counselor, we touch on 3 different domains, right? So we have there's a social emotional piece, there's the career piece, and then there is the college application piece as well. So some of the challenges or some of the things I hear from students is I think as a district or as a school site that we're still trying to improve on is to make sure that these kids have an idea of what they want to do after high school, right? Because we're having them do all kinds of applications senior year, but we want to make sure that we expose them to different careers, different colleges, all throughout high school so that when that time comes, they have an idea of what career to pursue in, right? And that plays an important part in what school you're going to apply to. And then it comes, the big piece, the cost, right? The cost is always a big thing for these students, whether they're going out of town or they're staying in town. And with our student population, we have a lot of students who are first generation and they come from a history of low background. So we want to make sure that they get exposed by doing field trips or having career events. So that way, like I said, they have an idea of where and what college they want to pursue. And then come senior year, like right around this time, we have them apply to as many schools that they meet the criteria for. And we also make sure that they apply for financial aid, apply for scholarships as well.
Yeah, no, and I think you touched on something very important. I actually had a follow-up question about that, but I think you touched on it very well. But I was going to ask, you mentioned you're in Fresno, California. You mentioned that you are supporting students, but we know very well that when it comes to supporting students, it's not a one-size-fits-all situation or scenario. So I was going to ask, what sort of populations you work with at the school you're in. You touched on that briefly, but I'm curious to know what sort of best practices, therefore, have you maybe looked into or worked on that have supported or best supported these vulnerable populations? Not so much the ones you work with necessarily, but just what advice would you have for counselors working with students from all backgrounds?
Yeah, so as a school, like we really rely on the whole team, right? Because there are, certain things that come up that may even be out of my specialty. So we like to operate on a all hands on deck, right, with the whole team on board. So we have like our social worker, school psychologist. We partner up with different communities. We also have a counselor that works with our district that serves foster youth, right? So those are, certain populations that they specialize in. And I'm really proud of our district because we have a lot of different support and resources that we can pull from. So like you said, it's not just, one person doing it all. It's always all hands on deck. When it's out of my specialty, I need to be sure that I can reach out to whoever or whatever that person is that can best support students based on their situation.
Well, yeah, you're definitely speaking to my soul, and you're actually reminding me of something that I learned in grad school, but it's like a holistic framework that you all are working within a teamwork to support students on multiple levels. And with us being CSAC, of course, the California Student Aid Commission, financial aid is a big part of the conversation. And unfortunately, throughout the pandemic, we've seen a decline in financial aid applications, both for the FAFSA and the California Dream Act application. Part of the reason why you actually got the award for the Arthur S. Marmaduke Award is because you have actually put in amazing work when it comes to financial aid. So what advice would you have for other counselors across the state as we discuss this holistic approach? What advice would you have for them to go ahead and help these students and hopefully increase these application rates?
Right. So I agree with you. I agree with you. It was difficult over the pandemic, right? Because everything was online. It's not in person where we can actually just go and get the student, right? So it takes, like I said, it takes the whole team on hands on deck. So what we did is as a team, we reach out to, well, the thing with financial aid completion or post-secondary plans, it shouldn't just be a counseling initiative. As a team, we want to make that a school culture or a school initiative, because our district is really big on financial aid completions and post-secondary plans. So what we did was we collaborated with our teachers, especially our senior English teachers. And over here at McLean, we have 3 different pathways that when they're in the pathway, they have a elective course for the seniors. So we reached out and collaborated with our English senior teachers, our CT senior teachers. We sent out communication to them just to help us promote, our evening financial aid workshops, or we send names to the teachers, especially the ones that they have in their classes, just to let them know, hey, can you help us make that push and communicate with that students? And sometimes that comes down to us having to do home visits if we're not able to reach the students that haven't completed their financial aid application. And when I say it's a whole team, we also partner up with our local colleges. So an example would be, we have the Dream Center at Fresno State, right, which is the closest CSU that we have here. And then we also have Fresno City College, which also has a Dream Center. So when it comes to, unique situations where it's, where I don't know everything, right? Especially if we have those streamers that are, a little bit nervous about everything that was going on and when it comes to financial aid. So we connect them with our local colleges. So I do have a colleague that I went to college with, who is now a counselor for the Dream Center. So I would connect them with him. And then for students who are interested in going to Fresno State, who is a dreamer, then we would try to connect them with the counselor at Fresno State, so that they actually hear it from the source. And because, as you know, the counselors over there, they get to see it firsthand, so they understand, all the financial aid and what the students go through. So just like I said, just working as a team, including the teachers and the staff. And of course, I think connecting with the parents is actually one of the most important things as well. And that's something that we still try to improve at our site.
And I think you made a really good point too. It really does take a village. You pull in external partners, you pull in the community colleges, maybe the CSUs near you, just the overall community that is here to support these students. But it takes just pulling in the group of dedicated individuals internally as well. Just even from experience, and I was helping my younger cousin recently with their college application. And I noticed that it was a homework assignment in their English class to pick out 1 or 2 of the UC application prompts, and then just kind of draft a response so that, maybe if they want to further pursue the application, they've already started. They've had that first step and they receive feedback on their work in writing. And I thought that was actually a very creative and fun way of doing that. And so that, maybe even students that want to apply and want to pursue higher ed might not know how to get to that first step. And I think just by even making these assignments a thing, or by even making, weekly or monthly check-ins with your counselor, you're sort of creating the infrastructure for students to not have to ask for the help and just receive it.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I love that, and it really speaks to what you've mentioned, Yia, is that it does really take a teamwork approach to actually help these students. But to that point, that's such a cool way of getting students to just start it off, and it's a requirement, right? So it makes things easier, and that's really what we should be thinking about, right? As staff members, as counselors, as whatever role that we're in, how do we make this process easier for students? Because unfortunately, a lot of the times what we hear directly from students is, I didn't apply because it's hard, or it's complex, or my parents found it difficult. But if we make that an easier process, it's going to be more likely for them to actually apply. So I love that that was actually a requirement.
Yeah, no, I thought that was really clever. And I think the hardest part is starting. So that helped that process. But we did want to just kind of learn a little bit more about you, Yia. You clearly have an amazing background. You do a lot of work with students in the communities in your area. You obviously care about the community you're in as you're giving back to it. So we want to learn a little bit more about your educational journey, your professional journey, and what that has looked like and impacted your work and what it means to you.
Yeah, so like I mentioned earlier, so my family immigrated here when I was about 3 years old. So ever since we got here, education has always been the thing that my parents talked about, right? It, gives you opportunities and so forth. So, going through high school, I started my education experience working with elementary students at the elementary after school program. So that's kind of where I kind of developed the passion to work with students. And then after that, I attended Fresno State, which is kind of the local college here that we have here in Fresno. So I attended there, completed my batch. I first started my major as an engineering major because that's what I was told to do, right? Because that's where all the big bucks are at. So I started my major as that. Second year, I ended up having to take calculus two times, and after that, that was it for me. So that's when I switched over my major to psychology, and that's eventually where I got my bachelor's in. So one thing that I did want to highlight during my time at Fresno State that helped me become successful was the programs that I was fortunate enough to know about and was able to get into because I had older siblings that were in those programs. So those programs were EOP, which is Educational Opportunity Program for first generation and students who had a history of low income. And then I was also fortunate enough to be in the program called Student Support Services, which also serves a similar population. So through those two programs, I always had people looking out for me, right? So we had, I was assigned to a peer mentor, a counselor. So we had to do like semester check-ins. So because of that, I always had to make sure that I get my grades up so that I don't get in trouble with my counselors. And see, this is one of the things, right? So even with our kids applying for colleges right now, we want to make sure they get in. But something that we highlight during our application workshops is these programs that the kids can get into if they do end up going to these type of schools, right? So like for Fresno State, even before we start off the Fresno State application, we want to highlight, programs like EOP, or like SSS, which is the Student Support Services, or CAMP, right, for students who work in those, who has a background in agriculture. So, because we keep pushing students to college, but we also want to make sure that we highlight what's already over there that can help make them successful during the time. So I just really want to highlight these programs that helped me through, my time over there. After getting my bachelor's in psychology, I did my master's in student affairs and college counseling with the PPS. And throughout my time in college, I've done a couple of different things. So what I did was I tried to get experiences from because I knew I was going to get into education and being a counselor. So I wanted to kind of get experience in K through 12, and then middle school, high school, and the college experience. So I've done advising at the psychology department because I was a psych major. And then I worked at the middle schools. I worked with CalSOAP, which I'm sure you guys are familiar with, which is the program that helps with financial aid. But when I was with them, I did the more of an advisor for the middle school to just kind of expose them prior to getting to high school.
No, definitely. And I think you made a really good point, Ia, in it's the retention piece, right? We can only do so much, and counselors and just these professionals working with students can only do so much in getting students to college, but that piece of retaining them and supporting them throughout their college experience is also part of the puzzle and one of the most important pieces, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And I know that in education, we do a lot of self-reflection. I know you mentioned student affairs. My grad program was also student affairs. There was lots of self-reflection. So our last question for you, Ia, is actually a reflective question for you. So if you could go back and talk to a younger version of yourself, what would you go ahead and actually share with him?
One thing that I can think of that I wish I would have done more is to do more things that makes me feel uncomfortable, right? Because when you're uncomfortable, you grow. So that's one thing that I wished I would have done. So I guess, for example, to just be put myself out there and be, more involved. Because growing up, I was I was kind of shy. I'm still shy. Um, so like doing podcast things like this, or maybe even taking the leap of faith and going to college out of town, right? So, like I said, for me, because as a first generation, I've never, or I didn't have any family members that went to college outside of Fresno. So sometimes you have to, break that barrier so that your younger siblings or your nieces and nephews, you see that, hey, this person is doing it. This is my uncle, my brother, or whatever is doing it, and that is possible for us as well. So I think I wish I would have just, taken that leap of faith and be more involved and do more things that I was uncomfortable with growing up. So that way I can at least put myself out there. Um, I remember telling this story to I think to one of my buddies where in college when I would sign up for a class, right? You would go to class and then they'll give you a syllabus and then you'll take a look to see how many presentations you have to do or how many tests. So every time I go to class and I see that for that class we have to do a presentation, I would literally say, hey, I'm not doing this class. I'm going to pick a different one. So, just little things like that, just taking on the challenge and putting myself out there.
Yeah, no, I think that is really good advice. Amazing answer. But thank you so much, Ia, for being here with us today. Congratulations again on being this year's Marmaduke Award winner. And I look forward to our paths crossing further in our work. And keep up the good work. And thank you for the work you do in your community and in building educational equity.
Thank you. So we're always trying to improve. And thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to join both of you guys today.
So I think that might have been my first interaction with our Marmaduke Award winner.
Ah, okay.
I did get a chance to see the award ceremony, so just hearing Yia's story and background and what motivates him was very inspirational then, and I think it was extremely inspirational now. And I'm glad I was able to have that conversation with him and that we were able to share that. And it just restores hope in knowing that there are people on the ground doing the work, supporting students, and it just makes our work, if I may say so, a lot more rewarding and a lot more worth doing, if there's even a term for that. And so kind of just really looking forward to all the work that's here to come and the work that's been done.
Absolutely. I mean, I really feel like his words were able to connect the dots of what work actually goes into, the hard work that actually goes into helping these students. I mean, we're still in this pandemic, so helping them through a pandemic to apply for colleges, for financial aid, it's that much harder. But to know, like you said, that there are people like him and a lot of people out there like him that are putting in that work, it really does make the work actually that much more special because you know that you're working together. We may not see these people every single day. Sometimes it may be virtually, sometimes it may be in person. But to just know that these people exist is just a nice little nugget to know.
No, definitely. Well, I think it's that part of the episode where we provide a myth buster, and I'll let you take it away with this.
Absolutely. Here's another big one, and I heard this a lot when I was actually going through high school. I heard it actually from a couple of friends where it's like, well, I don't have good grades, so I shouldn't even bother applying for financial aid. And the reality is that in most cases, if a student actually has at least a 2.0, they can qualify for some sort of aid. Now, of course, we want students to try as best as possible when it comes to their grades. The higher the grades, the better chance they have of getting into a good college, and also more access to things like scholarships that may require a higher grade point average, right? But we don't want people thinking, oh, well, I don't have the best grades or I don't have all A's, so I'm not even going to qualify for anything, because that is actually far from the truth. You can still apply. And we always say this time and time and again, try. It's free. Just try and see what you can actually qualify for. But yes, that's a big one that we hear often.
Yeah, don't opt out. Don't miss out on the opportunity, essentially. Just apply, leave the rest to us.
Yes.
I keep saying that. But, I think it's very true. It's just don't limit yourself.
Yes.
Essentially. Don't be your worst enemy, for lack of a better word. But, as we like to say, and in closing, step one is to apply for financial aid. You never know what you may be eligible for, so it just takes applying for either, not both, but either the FAFSA or the California DREAM Act application.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll add is that if you need assistance in helping you to actually fill out any of those applications, whether it be the FAFSA or the California DREAM Act application, know that CSAC has your back, so you can actually attend one of our Cash for College workshops or webinars, and we can actually help you out live in filling out those applications.
And with that, thank you so much for joining us today. Again, my name is Judith Gutierrez.
And I'm Michael Lemus.
And thank you for listening to Financial Paid. Bye, everyone.
Bye.